Trump's rise coincides with De Niro's decline, and the person who knows it most is De Niro. He's a fine example of how not to turn loss into bitterness. There are plenty of people who don't like Trump, but don't let it warp their minds or their ability to speak aloud among grown-ups or The View. But the Schiffs and De Niros of the world are emotionally damaged by politics to a point where they can't even assess their own emotions. Being an actor is tough. For how does one handle real life without a script? Not equipped to think analytically, you're left powerless when observing your own predictions about life turn out wrong. It's not supposed to be this way, De Niro thinks. Only the cool guys get to win. Sorry, Bob. That's only in the movies, but at least you'll always have...
Once hailed as a cinematic titan, Robert De Niro now fumbles through political rants like a retiree lost in a Twitter war. Then Greg Gutfeld stepped in, armed with sarcasm, wit, and a sledgehammer of truth. What followed wasn't a roast. It was a high-speed collision between De Niro's outdated outrage and Gutfeld's relentless reality check. With each jab, Gutfeld stripped away the tough guy act, revealing a cranky icon out of sync with the times. This wasn't acting, it was unraveling.
Robert De Niro graced the knitting circle in hell known as The View, where he tried to link random thoughts into a sentence. Joy was there to wind him up, since he's played some of the most unredeemable characters.
You have played some of the most really unredeemable characters. Travis Bickle. Travis Bickle was a psychopathic taxi driver. Jake LaMotta, who used to beat his wife, and he was in The Raging Bull. Is Trump worse than they are?
To me, he is. He has no understanding that I can see of the outside.
Robert De Niro, once the towering force behind cinema's most iconic performances, has now fully evolved into Hollywood's loudest supplier of unsolicited political tantrums. The man who once whispered chilling menace in mob films now bellows like a malfunctioning foghorn during a CNN panel, unprovoked, unfiltered, and blissfully unaware. Every public appearance feels like watching Vito Corleone do stand-up at a poorly lit protest rally. And just when you think he's hit peak self-parody, Greg Gutfeld casually walks in, smirking, and begins dismantling De Niro's crumbling legacy, brick by brick, scene by scene, meltdown by meltdown. It's not a roast, it's a cinematic eulogy, directed by Gutfeld, edited by reality, and starring a legend who forgot when to exit the stage.
De Niro kind of represents Hollywood in the sense that they realize that they're losing influence with the public, and that's what's generating the emotional response. They've never felt less important.
It just, doesn't it feel like 2016 again? Like, we lived through that. Did they forget?
Yeah.
It also feels like they forgot that. And remember, just this week we had Kamala Harris dropping the F-bomb at a group.
No red carpet, no dramatic entrance, just Gutfeld, armed with a raised eyebrow, a smirk, and the kind of confidence that doesn't need a spotlight. He steps in quietly, then starts tossing verbal grenades at a man who somehow turned unhinged, shouting into a full-time personality. The roast doesn't begin with fireworks. It starts with surgical precision, like a scalpel, not a torch. Gutfeld slices through De Niro's grandstanding with the calm detachment of a doctor diagnosing a swollen ego suffering from terminal delusion and a severe allergy to self-awareness.
Robert De Niro's 29-year-old child, Aaron, has come out as transgender. When the press asked her for comment, she said, "You talking to they, them?" Thank you. Last night, an elderly, confused man went missing in New York. Luckily, a band of self-satisfied elitists found him babbling on the street, threw some pants on him, gave him a stage.
And the sad part? It's not even hard. De Niro has practically become a parody on autopilot. Once a titan of cinematic gravity, he's now a walking meme. A grumpy monument to faded glory who refuses to exit stage left. He wheezes through press conferences like he's stuck in a permanent audition for World's Angriest Man Part 2, a sequel no studio asked for. The man who once delivered lines that pierced the soul now delivers rants that barely stir a paper cup. His performances used to echo. Now they just echo chamber.
You really worry that if he were to win again, and I'm not saying this like it's such a far-fetched notion, if he were to win again, that he would not give up power?
You know he won't. You know he won't. He even said it. He's never going to give it up. And anybody who deludes themselves in thinking that he is.
Greg doesn't need to fabricate. He just needs to watch. De Niro handed him the script without even realizing it. Once a masterclass in layered performances, De Niro has now abandoned subtlety like a gym membership after New Year's. Where there was once depth, nuance, and quiet menace, there's now just volume, blaring, erratic, and aimless. It's not acting anymore. It's performance art for the perpetually outraged. His rants feel less like opinions and more like echoes of irrelevance he's desperately chasing. Talent exited the building sometime around Dirty Grandpa, and what's left keeps shouting to remind us it once mattered.
Trump.
Talk about persuasive. Really, I was on the fence about Trump, but then I decided to really listen to one of the great generational leaders of American pop culture, and the clenched fists at the end, that really drove it home. It looked like he was pressing a 2-pound weight in a Jenny Craig commercial.
Oh my God.
Look at it again. It's so cute. It's like he found out the restaurant serves Jell-O, or that he won a $10 scratch off.
And no, that wasn't satire. That was the actual title. A real film, a real performance, and genuinely sad to watch. The man who once masterfully brought Travis Bickle and Jake LaMotta to life somehow decided that playing a sleazy, shirtless geriatric goofball in a movie cobbled together from rejected SNL sketches was the logical next step in his career. Gutfeld doesn't even have to exaggerate. The material is self-roasting. Darrow's film choices over the last decade read like a desperate, reckless gamble to stay relevant in a world that long ago wrote him off. A resume that once boasted prestige and gravitas now doubles as a cautionary tutorial on how to annihilate your legacy with slapstick antics and perpetual scowls. But it's not just the movies, it's the man himself. The new Darrow is the embodiment of what happens when a once celebrated icon mistakes Twitter rants for political strategy and believes that unchecked rage is a virtue. He shows up on TV panels and award shows like a man convinced that yelling louder somehow makes his point stronger. His idea of communication is volume cranked up to 111, logic shredded and tossed into a wood chipper. Greg doesn't attack the art. He mourns its loss. Just Darrow stomping around like King Lear in a rumpled bathrobe, convinced the world is still waiting for his cue. And Gutfeld doesn't need to punch down. He just watches Darrow stumble over his own inflated ego and politely points out that the emperor not only has no clothes, but is also angrily yelling at the poor tailor trying to help him.